Hey everyone, it's Randy Blythe, and I'm welcoming Arthur Kade to Behind the Velvet Rope to talk about my new book, Dark Days. It's a memoir. Thank you very much.
Check it out and go buy it. Anytime you see a music memoir, you usually kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to get the sex, drugs, rock and roll, and crazy stories. But your story, man, it might top them all. And I remember when it was all happening. First of all, congratulations on the memoir, Dark Days. And it was crazy what you went through. And to actually read about it blew my mind. So talk to me about everything that happened. You know, without going into background about what happened, just throw it all at me.
Well, first of all, you were talking about memoirs, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that stuff. The ultimate sex, drugs, rock and roll memoir has already been written. It's called The Dirt by Motley Crue. You don't need to read anything else. Nobody's going to party harder than those guys did, you know. But my memoir is basically the story of me being suddenly arrested at the airport in Prague after we landed, handed by a SWAT team. These guys looked like they were there to apprehend bin Laden or something. They had masks and machine guns and stuff. Then being handed a piece of paper telling me I was being charged with manslaughter for the death of a fan involving this fan had left the stage at a concert 2 years earlier. They were saying I had purposely hurt this guy, attacked him, and then he died a month later, went into a coma. And then 2 years later, we show up. We didn't know. Nobody told us anyone was hurt. We had no idea. We show up 2 years later. I'm met by this SWAT team at the end of this, suddenly met by them at the end of this runway in Prague. And they arrested me and charged me with manslaughter. And I went to a 123-year-old prison for like 37 days, 33 days in jail, 34 days in prison, and paid bail twice, almost $500,000. You have to pay bail twice sometimes, apparently, over there. And then I got out, in return, decided to go back to trial and was found not guilty.
That's the thing that boggles my mind. You're a better man than I am. I would have never left this country again, probably, and yet you went back. What went into your reasoning?
Well, you know, you and a lot of other people say I never would have gone back, but, you know, and at first I'd be like, that's kind of a bummer. But the fact of the matter is you don't know what you would have done until you were placed in my situation. You know, nobody really knows how they would react. My conscience compelled me to go back and provide the family of this young man some answers, the best I could, as to what happened at that concert, because they never attacked me in the press. They never badmouthed me. They never came at me in person, you know, through lawyers, nothing. They just wanted to know what happened to their kid. And even though the answers were very unclear, very nebulous, you know, I thought the best way to find out would maybe go and stand trial, you know.
This became an international story. Did you know, because you're in these horrific conditions, you're in this, like you had mentioned, 123-year-old prison, you're getting bread every morning and that's your meal. Did you know that people were out there protesting, trying to get you out, fighting for you? Do you have any idea what was going on?
No, my wife wrote me a letter, and like my bandmates sent me a letter, and they're like, there's like a large amount of support, especially from the music community, you know, my peers, and just the music community in large. They're like, there's a large amount of support, but I didn't really know what that meant because I'm in prison with no internet and no English newspaper, no TV, none of that, you know. I was like, well, that's cool, you know. A prisoner came one day and he you know, we're in the Czech Republic. He doesn't speak English. He's like, at walk, he's like, he looks at me, he goes, I could tell he's thinking really hard. And he's like, Ozzy Osbourne says good thing for you. And I'm like, what? Ozzy Osbourne says good thing for you. He says go home. And I'm like, what did Ozzy say? It's good. He's like, Ozzy Osbourne says good thing for you. That's all he could, like, I mean, he was struggling because he doesn't speak English. So, I mean, apparently Ozzy had said something and it was in the Czech papers, you know. And I knew that people knew about what was going on, but just I really had no perception because I'm in prison.
What's going through your mind as you're in there? Obviously, that you're in survival mode and you're going through this hell. But what's going through your mind? Do you start thinking about what if I am convicted? Obviously, what happens next?
Sure. Yeah. Basically, the first time I paid bail, I started looking forward to going home. I mean, I didn't think the whole ordeal was over, but I was like, cool, I'm going to go home to America and eat something else other than soup. I'm going to see my wife, I'm going to kick it with my friends and enjoy life for a minute and not be in this dump, And then my bail they objected to it and they got overturned. And that was the lowest point emotionally for me because I'd already allowed myself to start looking forward to going home. So from there on out, man, I just tried to think of this is my home now. I don't know for how long, this is where I am right now and I've got to accept that and make the best of it. So, I mean, it wasn't fun.
One of the things that's crazy to me is obviously how the incidents occurred. This is when you guys are in concert, I mean, people are always jumping on stage. This can happen anytime. And you mentioned that this was just kind of in your recollection. You remember that there was a death in Slipknot. It didn't seem abnormal to you. No,
and like the fact of the matter is that we had, I remember that day because I found out that day that my friend Paul Gray from Slipknot had died, and you always remember where you are when you hear someone dies that's close to you. And it was our first time in Prague, and it was a rowdy show, and security was non-present. So we always have security. It's required by our contract that the club and the promoter provide it. And at this time, security, they didn't do their job. Supposedly there was security there. I never saw them. And there was no barricade. And it was just like, it happens that people get on stage, but we have preventative measures that, normally they're in place. At this point in time, the club and the promoter decide to strike that, or they just didn't do their job. So, to me, when we left, it was like, okay, that was a shitty show. Oops, beep. That was
no, it's okay. Cursing is fine.
Yeah, that was a crappy show, and I'm glad that's over with. But other than that, it just seemed like another day at work to me. Just one show of literally 1,000 I've played, and it was just, I don't know, at the end of that, I didn't really have any recollection of anything. And then 2 years later, I was arrested. And it's, out of the whole thing, I hope that the major thing that comes out of it is I hope that people in bands and in clubs and all that, and audience members understand the need for security and why it's there. Not just for the band, but for the audience members to protect them.
How does an ordeal like this change you? You come out of it, you start reflecting on it, obviously. How does it change you as a person?
Well, for me, it didn't really change me much as a person. I had I used to drink a whole lot. I drank for like...
And you talk openly?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. So I was... And that's no big secret to anybody who knows anything about my band. So I drank for like 22 years, and I got sober about, before all this happened, before I went to prison. And that was a huge change for me in my personality. That was like, and in my life, that was okay, let's change. Just start getting your crap together, basically. And that was such a radical change for me that when I went to prison and went through all this, I was just trying to continue to do the right thing. It wasn't like I have to change to become this different person in order to deal with this. It was like I have to maintain on the path that I'm on, to maintain the person that I have become since I've been sober, I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking or partying or whatever. In general, for me, it's very wrong. It doesn't treat me well. So as a person, how has it changed me? I mean, it adds some sadness to your life. Definitely. It makes you sad when you think about stuff like this. It's a tragedy, but I'm the same old dude,
What's incredible to me is most people, including myself, would have gone through something like this and been like, woe is me. And yet you're looking at it really objectively and saying something really bad happened to somebody else here in a family. It's pretty incredible with that. Just seeing it from that perspective.
Well, I think, that's because I think, dude, really getting sober had a lot to do with the way I view the world for me, because like I tried to block out everything that I didn't like about the world for a long time by doing this glug, 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 and I wasn't happy at the end. Drinking didn't make me happy at the end. It did make me like, woe is me. My life sucks. You would drink too if you had my job and all this other stuff, and there's so much pressure. And that was all a bunch of crap. Life was sucking because I was drinking so much and making it suck. So once I got sober, I'm like, things aren't so bad. And, life isn't fair. I hate to tell this to people. Sometimes life just isn't fair. You don't always get what you want, and you have to deal with it the best you can. And I tried to keep that in mind. I also get to travel. I'm lucky enough for my job, and I get to see things that a lot of people never get to see. Like, it gives you perspective, man. I've been to like India. Like, if you think you've seen poverty, go to India, go to like there and see people living in entire neighborhoods made out of garbage, or like the ghetto in Venezuela. That's like poor, You appreciate so much more what you have when you see people for whom running water is a luxury. It gives you perspective. And before I went to prison, like 2 weeks before I went to prison, I went and toured Auschwitz by myself, right? That puts things in perspective. Yeah. That puts the whole prison experience in perspective. Where I wasn't nice, but it wasn't Auschwitz.
Speaking of your job, you guys got a new album coming out. Congratulations. What can people expect?
It's going to sound like Kanye West meets Willie Nelson on a meth binge.
I love your sense of humor.
It's heavy metal, man. It's I didn't write a lot about the whole experience. I wrote 2 songs while I was in prison. About being in prison, because if you're ever going to write a song about being in prison, you should do it while you're in prison. You
kept a journal though while you were.
Yeah, that's how I got like my book. The outline to it basically is I kept a pretty in-depth journal.
But I was reading when you came out, you actually had offers. Everybody was coming after you. Hey, let's tell your story, and you wanted to wait a little bit.
Yeah, after it was all done, there were people asking me. There was a literary agent. My booking agent kept on calling me. He's like, I got this literary agent that wants to talk to you. And I'm like, no, dude, no. I just got done with this because I knew anytime a literary agent was going to call me around then and say they want to talk to me about one thing. And that's this whole thing. And I figured one day I'd chill when I was older and wiser, and I'd write my memoir and my recollection of this or whatever. And I wasn't ready emotionally, but I talked to this literary agent. I told him, like, look, I think my story has value. I think it has some worth. I think it could help some people. I think I can write it well. And, I have this journal, and I have all these memories. And my agent, the guy who became my agent, he changed my mind with one sentence. He goes, yeah, but the memories are going to fade. And he's right. Human memory is very fallible. So I was like, you're right. I better get it down while I can.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I was reading, they wanted 87,000 words, and you came in with like 270,000 words, something insane like that.
My contract was 80 to 100,000 words, and I turned in like 247,000 words.
You want to write now, I was reading too.
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
I want to write. I did write.
You want to continue writing.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
That's why I am not a writer, as you can see by my thought process.
No. Yes, I that's what I'm interested in doing, and it just not another nonfiction book about me.
Going to jail.
Yeah, or anything bad at all about me. If there's maybe something bad will happen, it'll be like to someone I make up,
So when you look at going through that process, was it tough? Was it therapeutic for you reliving it?
Writing the book?
Yep.
I wouldn't call it therapeutic at all. it sucked. I didn't have to come to terms. I didn't have to have this soul-searching, cathartic experience, reliving this and putting these things to rest. I mean, that's nice for a Hallmark card or for a Lifetime movie, but that's not my life. What it was is like, okay, I got this story. It needs to be told. I know what happened. It sucked. It's going to suck writing it, a lot of it, but I want it to be well written. So I spent a lot of time and effort in it. And, I'll never write 247,000 words about going to prison again, I hope.
What's been reactions from, even if you look back when you came out, what's been one or two reactions that really blew your mind, that either people cared or feedback?
I think from like after the whole experience, you mean? Mm-hmm. I just think really when I got out, just seeing like the overwhelming amount of support from people in the music community, like people I didn't know, thousands of people. And when I got home to my town, in my city of Richmond, the first few days I'm walking down the street and people were like beeping their horns, like old people I've never met, people from all different walks of life. They're like, hey, you're out, because I was a news story at home, and it was like really nice.
It was a big deal. I remember it, and I remember thinking to myself, this sounds so bizarre. And I think that's what a lot of people were thinking.
Yes, it was pretty surreal. That'd be a pretty apt way to describe it. Like, pretty surreal,
Congrats on the book, man. Crazy stuff. Like I said, you usually, as an interviewer, a lot of it can be the same to a certain degree. It's like, hey, I partied, I had sex, whatever. But this is something that you do not see every day, and you really took it in a very unique way, in a very positive way to it in many degrees.
Thanks. I don't really know what else you're supposed to do with a life experience like that, other than look at it and try and make the best of it. And you can sit there and be bitter and angry. When was the last time you saw someone all bitter and angry and you were like, I want to hang out with that guy?
This is true.
He looks like he's going to be awesome. He's going to have some good advice for me. Look, he's bitter and angry. What's your name, bro?
Let's go grab a drink.
Yeah, let's go have a drink.
Congrats on the book, man.